You know what your problem is, Lexi? You're too desperate to fit in. Everyone can smell it. Like a wounded animal stumbling into a wolf den. His words pierced through the conference room. Silence. As my presentation slides flickered on the screen behind me, 8 pairs of eyes shifted uncomfortably. Nobody spoke. Nobody defended me. Grant leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, the corner of his mouth lifting into that smile I'd grown to dread. The client needs confidence, not whatever this is, he continued, gesturing dismissively at my months of work displayed on screen. This design approach lacks vision. It's amateur hour. My voice caught in my throat as I tried to respond. The room tilted slightly. 3 months of late nights, research, and innovation, dismissed in seconds. The worst part wasn't Grant's criticism. It was how the others nodded along. Even Devin, who'd praised my concepts privately yesterday. I've taken the liberty of preparing an alternative, Grant announced, connecting his laptop to the projector. Something more aligned with professional standards. My hands trembled as his presentation appeared. Slide after slide of my designs, with minor color adjustments and his name in the footer. My research, my innovations, my concepts, all now bearing his signature. This is my work, I whispered, then found my voice. These are my designs. Grant's expression hardened. Be careful with accusations, Lexi. Nobody likes a woman who can't handle criticism. Maybe you should step outside until you've composed yourself. The department head cleared his throat. Let's take 5, everyone. As the room emptied, I remained frozen, staring at my stolen work. Grant lingered behind, approaching so close I could smell his cologne. Nobody will believe you, he murmured, his breath hot against my ear. Not against me. I've been here 7 years. You're just the diversity hire who couldn't cut it. Keep pushing, and I'll make sure you never work in design again. He straightened my presentation notes with mock helpfulness. Some people belong in this industry, Lexi. You're not one of them. As he walked out, I noticed a small object drop from his pocket onto the carpet. Through my tears, I leaned down to see what it was, and my entire world shifted. In that moment, I didn't know it would lead to police officers storming our office, metal handcuffs gleaming as they approached his desk, or the emergency HR meeting where executives would stare at me with horror and newfound respect. I only knew that what I held in my palm would change everything. If you're invested in my story so far, please hit like and subscribe to support me sharing these difficult experiences. Your comments help me know I'm not alone in what happened. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Alexandra, Lexi to friends and colleagues. I've dreamed of working in architectural design since I was 12, sketching buildings in the margins of my notebooks, while other kids passed notes about crushes and weekend plans. My single mom saved every drawing I made, telling me I'd change skylines someday. I graduated top of my class, interned at smaller firms, and finally landed my dream position at Brookfield Design Associates 3 months ago. The firm had a reputation for innovative commercial spaces and a client list that made my heart race. I should have been suspicious when I realized I'd be the only woman on the 10-person design team, but I was too excited to care. Your portfolio shows tremendous promise, Warren, the department head had said during my interview. Your perspective is exactly what we need to stay competitive. My first day, I arrived an hour early, wearing a new outfit I'd carefully selected, professional but creative. The office hummed with activity, sleek and modern with glass-walled meeting rooms and open workspaces. 9 men looked up as Warren introduced me, their expressions ranging from polite interest to outright skepticism. Grant stood out immediately. Tall with perfectly styled dark hair and expensive clothes, he occupied the largest workspace near the windows. While others nodded hello, Grant merely assessed me, his eyes moving from my face to my portfolio case and back. Impressive credentials, he said later, appearing beside my desk without warning. Let's hope the talent matches the paperwork. I laughed nervously, missing the warning in his words. I'm excited to prove myself. The first 2 weeks passed in a blur of learning systems, meeting clients, and settling in. I noticed oddities but dismissed them, my computer occasionally showing different settings when I arrived each morning, files saved in folders I hadn't created, my chair height adjusted, small things, easily attributed to cleaning staff or my own forgetfulness under pressure. Then the hovering started. Grant would stand behind me, watching me work, offering guidance that felt more like control. Your approach is interesting, he'd say, reaching over to move my cursor, changing my designs. But clients in this market respond better to traditional elements. Let me show you. When I'd present my ideas in meetings, Grant would interrupt with counterpoints, speaking over me until I fell silent. What began as occasional corrections became constant undermining. If I suggested blue, Grant argued for green. If I recommended contemporary, Grant pushed for classic. One Tuesday morning, I arrived to find my desk drawer slightly open. My grandmother's bracelet, a simple silver chain I kept for good luck, was missing. I searched everywhere, asked everyone. Nothing. Maybe you left it at home? Devin suggested kindly. Or maybe you should be more careful with your belongings, Grant added with a shrug. Professional environments require organization. The next week, my prescription medication disappeared from my bag, then my special drawing pen. Small items, but personally significant. You seem distracted lately, Warren commented after I searched my desk for the third time that week. Everything okay at home? I'm not distracted, I insisted. Things keep disappearing from my desk. Warren's brow furrowed. That's a serious accusation, Lexi. Are you suggesting someone here is taking your things? Grant appeared beside us. Lexi's been under pressure with the Westbrook project. We all misplace things when stressed. Their concerned expressions made me doubt myself. Was I becoming paranoid? Forgetful? By the second month, I'd started photographing my desk before leaving each night. I kept my bag with me at all times. I arrived earlier, stayed later, trying to catch whoever was gaslighting me. The isolation grew as colleagues began to avoid me, whispers following me to the break room. Did you hear she accused the cleaning staff of stealing? My friend at Henderson said she had issues there too. Warren's too nice to say anything, but she's not meeting expectations. I never said these things. I'd never worked at Henderson, but denial only made me appear defensive. Then came the project sabotage. My files would become corrupted overnight. Clients who initially seemed enthusiastic about my concepts suddenly requested someone with more experience. My confidence crumbled as each opportunity to prove myself was systematically destroyed. We need to discuss your performance, Warren said. After a particularly difficult meeting where Grant had smoothly taken over my presentation, the creative industry isn't for everyone. I just need more time, I pleaded, hating the desperation in my voice. Something strange is happening here. Warren sighed. Lexi, Grant has offered to mentor you. He's our top designer, and he's never extended this offer before. I suggest you accept his help. That night, working late, I was alone in the office, or thought I was until I caught movement reflected in my darkened monitor. Grant, watching me from the hallway. When he realized I'd noticed him, he approached with a sympathetic smile. Still struggling with the Harrison proposal? I could take it over if you're overwhelmed. I've got it, thanks, I replied stiffly. No shame in admitting defeat, Lexi. Design requires thick skin. He leaned against my desk. Some people just don't have what it takes. After he left, I packed up quickly, unnerved by our interaction. At home, I emptied my bag onto my bed and froze. There, nestled between my notebook and wallet, sat a small black device I'd never seen before. Round, smaller than a quarter, with a tiny blinking light. My hands shook as I examined it without touching it. A tracking device? A recording bug? Both? In that moment, everything clicked into horrifying focus. This wasn't random cruelty or professional rivalry. This was calculated, methodical, psychological warfare. And I finally understood what I was dealing with. Someone who wouldn't stop until I was broken or gone. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I researched tracking devices, harassment patterns, and most importantly, how to gather evidence without alerting my stalker. By morning, I had a plan. Grant wouldn't expect me to fight back. He'd expect tears, a resignation letter, or a breakdown. Instead, he was about to meet a version of me he never anticipated. What I didn't know then was how deep his obsession ran, or how many women had faced his tactics before me. I couldn't imagine the chilling discoveries waiting on his personal devices, or how many lives he'd destroyed with his mentorship. But I was about to find out. The next morning, I arrived at work with my battle plan in motion. The tracking device remained in my bag, now nestled inside a small fabric pouch alongside a decoy I'd purchased overnight. Let Grant think his surveillance continued undetected. My new smartwatch, rushed delivered and set up before dawn, looked ordinary, but continuously recorded audio when activated. A small camera pen sat in my shirt pocket, indistinguishable from a regular pen. If Grant wanted to monitor me, I'd return the favor with interest. You look different today, Devin remarked as I settled at my desk. I smiled, just determined. Grant arrived an hour later, scanning the room before his eyes landed on me. He paused, perhaps noticing my changed demeanor, then approached with his usual calculated casualness. How's the Harrison project coming along? Still struggling? Actually, I had a breakthrough last night, I replied, maintaining eye contact. Sometimes our best ideas come when we're pushed to our limits. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps even concern. I wasn't following his script. Well, don't get too attached to your concept. The client has specific expectations. He tapped my desk. I'll need to review everything before submission. As he walked away, I discreetly tapped my watch to stop the recording. First interaction captured. Over the next 2 weeks, I documented everything. The accidental coffee spill on my sketches. The missing client emails that Grant claimed never existed until I produced screenshots. The whispered comments when he thought no one could hear. Emotional liability. Diversity obligation. Temporary problem. Each night, I transferred my recordings to encrypted storage, creating a timeline of harassment. I learned to predict his patterns, and de-escalated after successful presentations, grew bolder when Warren was away, and always lingered after hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. What I didn't anticipate was discovering I wasn't his first target. While researching Grant's professional background for leverage, I found a pattern across his previous employers, talented women hired, then leaving within months. 3 different firms, 3 similar stories. Searching deeper, I found a blog post without names. How workplace stalking ended my design career. The details mirrored my experience exactly. Missing items, corrupted files, professional sabotage. The writer described her harasser's methods in chilling detail. He collected trophies from each target, called them his souvenirs of surrender. My grandmother's bracelet, my special pen, trophies. The realization sent ice through my veins. This wasn't improvised harassment. It was a practiced methodology. Grant had refined his techniques across multiple victims. And until now, he'd always succeeded. One evening, working late intentionally, I watched through my monitor's reflection as Grant entered the office. He checked for witnesses before approaching my workspace. I kept my eyes on my screen, pretending absorption in my task while my recording devices captured everything. He circled my desk like a predator, then stopped. Dedication, he said, startling me with his sudden voice. I admire that, even if it's wasted effort. I turned, maintaining a neutral expression, just finishing the Parkview presentation. Ah yes, tomorrow's meeting. He smiled. Your first major client presentation, isn't it? Nervous? Prepared, I corrected. We'll see. He leaned closer. Preparation only gets you so far. Some people simply lack the natural authority to command a room. Clients sense weakness, Lexi, like I do. My watch recorded every word, every threatening inflection. Thanks for the advice, I replied evenly. After he left, I stayed another hour, completing my work and backing up all files in multiple locations. Something about his confidence worried me. The Parkview presentation represented weeks of work, my chance to impress our biggest potential client. I couldn't know that by morning, every file would be corrupted, every backup inexplicably damaged, with embedded text visible only when the files crashed. Incompetent, unqualified, unwanted. When I discovered the sabotage, I didn't panic as Grant expected. Instead, I calmly walked to IT, ensuring multiple witnesses observed the corrupted files and their embedded messages. This isn't system failure, the IT director said, frowning at her screen. This is deliberate. Someone with access to your drive did this. The meeting was in 2 hours, no time to recreate months of work. As if summoned by my distress, Grant appeared, concern perfectly arranged on his face. Problem with the Parkview files? What terrible timing. Several colleagues gathered, watching the drama unfold. Everything's corrupted, I explained, allowing my voice to tremble slightly. All my backups too. That's devastating, Grant said, eyes gleaming. Such an important presentation. Then came his trap. You know, I always keep copies of team projects for situations like this. I have a version from last week. Not your final work, but better than nothing. The setup was perfect. He'd sabotaged my files, knowing I'd have no choice but to use his version, which would undoubtedly be modified to fail or show my work as inferior. Either I'd present nothing, or I'd present something designed to humiliate me. That's so thoughtful, I replied, noticing how his expression brightened at my apparent surrender. Could you send it over right away? When his files arrived, I opened them immediately, making a show of relief. This helps tremendously. Thank you, Grant. He walked away victorious, unaware I'd never opened those files in the actual presentation. Because during those sleepless nights of planning, I'd created an entirely separate version stored off-network on my personal drive. While Grant thought I was desperately reviewing his sabotaged files, I was actually transferring my real presentation to the conference room computer. When the Parkview executives arrived, Grant positioned himself prominently, clearly anticipating my failure. Warren introduced me with thinly veiled concern, having heard about the file disaster. I stepped to the front of the room, pulse racing but voice steady. Before I begin, I want to thank my colleague Grant for offering his backup files after this morning's technical issues. I nodded toward him. Fortunately, I maintain additional backups off-site for precisely such emergencies. Grant's smile froze as I launched into a flawless presentation of my original, uncorrupted work. The clients were enthusiastic, asking questions that I answered with growing confidence. When they announced their intention to proceed with my design concept, Grant's face contorted with barely suppressed rage. That evening, my watch recorded Grant's phone conversation in the empty office kitchen. She had another backup. I don't know how. Yes, I took care of her main files and the server copies. No, this is becoming complicated. She doesn't break like the others. More direct measures may be necessary. Direct measures. The threatening tone sent chills down my spine. Whatever psychological game we'd been playing had just escalated to something more dangerous. That night, I compiled everything: the tracking device, audio recordings, corrupted files with their embedded threats, photographs of my bruised arm from Grant's accidental shoves, screenshots of manipulated emails, and the pattern of harassment established through my detailed journal entries. I added research on his previous workplaces and the women who'd left after his arrival. Then I made 3 copies, one for the police, one for HR, and one secured in cloud storage. As I reviewed the evidence, I noticed something on one recording I'd missed: Grant speaking to someone on his phone. The medication is hidden with the others. My little collection. She's nearly finished anyway. Another week and she'll either quit or have a complete breakdown. They always do. My missing medication. The others. How many women had he terrorized this way? How many careers destroyed? How many lives altered? I made my decision. The next morning, I contacted the police with my evidence. The detective reviewed my materials with increasing concern. This is methodical stalking and harassment, she said. The tracking device alone is a criminal offense. But combined with everything else. She looked up from her notes. You mentioned other potential victims? At least 3 I've identified, I confirmed. Possibly more. We'll need to investigate further, but there's enough here for immediate action. We'll require a statement and may need access to your work area. I provided everything they requested, then returned to work as if nothing had changed. For 2 days, I maintained normal behavior, feeling Grant's watchful eyes, sensing his growing unease at my unexplained resilience. Then came Wednesday morning. Our team gathered in the conference room for our weekly status meeting. Grant arrived last, sliding into his usual seat across from me. Warren began reviewing project timelines. The conference room door opened. 2 uniformed police officers entered, followed by a detective in plain clothes. The room fell silent. Grant Phillips? The detective asked. Grant straightened. Yes? What's this about? Please stand and place your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for criminal stalking, cyberstalking, property theft, and workplace harassment. As an officer recited his rights, Grant's eyes locked on mine, first in shock, then in burning hatred, as understanding dawned. This is ridiculous, he sputtered as they secured handcuffs. She's unstable. Ask anyone here. No one spoke. The evidence the police had discovered spoke volumes. When officers searched his apartment with a warrant, they found his collection, items taken from women across multiple companies. Journals detailing his methods, my grandmother's bracelet, my medication, dozens of other personal items labeled with women's names and surrender dates. But it was the collection of unauthorized recordings from tracking devices planted on multiple women that elevated the charges to serious criminal offenses. Grant had documented his own crimes meticulously, believing himself too clever to be caught. As they led him away through the stunned office, Warren approached me, face ashen. "There's going to be an emergency HR meeting tomorrow morning," he said quietly. "We need to understand the full extent of what happened." What no one realized yet was that Grant's arrest was just the beginning. The emergency meeting would reveal something none of them expected, something that would transform not just my future, but the entire company's culture. Because what Grant never understood about me was this: I didn't just want escape from my tormentor. I wanted something far more powerful. I wanted change. The emergency HR meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. in the largest conference room. By 8:30, I arrived to find executives from headquarters I'd never seen before, looking grave in tailored suits. Legal representatives with notepads, Warren pacing by the windows, security personnel stationed discreetly by the doors. The weight of what was about to happen pressed against my chest as I took my seat. "Thank you for coming, Lexi," said a woman who introduced herself as the Chief Operations Officer. "We understand this is difficult, but we need to understand exactly what happened." I nodded, my evidence folder on the table before me. The room filled quickly: department heads, HR representatives, the IT director, and my design team colleagues, all avoiding my eyes except Devin, who offered a small nod of encouragement. "Before we begin," the COO continued, "I want to assure you that yesterday's arrest has the company's full attention. We're committed to understanding how this situation developed and remained unaddressed." "With respect," I replied, "it didn't remain unaddressed. It remained unbelieved." The room shifted uncomfortably. "That's why we're here," the head of HR said, "to understand the full scope of what occurred." I opened my evidence folder. I've prepared a timeline documenting the harassment pattern, beginning 3 months ago when I joined the company. For the next 40 minutes, I presented my evidence methodically, the progression from subtle undermining to active sabotage, the stolen items, the corrupted files, the tracking device, the coordinated isolation tactics. As I spoke, expressions changed from professional concern to disturbed disbelief. When I played the audio recordings of Grant's threats and his phone conversations discussing his methods, several people visibly recoiled. The legal representative paused, searching for words. "This shows planning and malice beyond anything I've encountered in 15 years of employment law." "There's more," I said quietly, reaching for the final section of my folder. "Yesterday, the police shared what they discovered in Grant's apartment." I distributed copies of the police report summary. The room fell silent as they read. 17 women, whispered Warren, looking up from the document, across 6 companies, over 9 years. A pattern of targeting high-potential female employees who might threaten his position, the COO read aloud. Collection of personal items cataloged by victim name. Detailed journals documenting methods of psychological manipulation and professional sabotage. Devin's voice broke the stunned silence. "You weren't even his first target here. Emma Barlow from accounting. She left after 2 months last year. Said this environment wasn't supportive enough. The police found her medication in his collection," I confirmed, along with items from other employees who left suddenly. The head of HR's face had drained of color. We conducted exit interviews. None of them mentioned harassment. "Because Grant's methods were designed to make them doubt themselves," I explained, "to appear unstable if they complained. He created situations where reporting would damage their credibility." The COO leaned forward. "You mentioned recordings that especially concerned the authorities?" This was the moment. I took a breath. Grant didn't just track his targets. He recorded them, private conversations, phone calls with family members, even in their homes through tracking devices like the one he planted on me. I connected my laptop to the conference room screen and played a compilation the police had permitted me to share. Grant's voice narrating his techniques, while playing recordings of women breaking down in private after his public humiliations. His laughter as he described watching one victim lose a major client opportunity through his sabotage, his detailed planning for who to target next, and most damning, his conversations with 2 senior employees at Brookfield, discussing which women might be problems and needed management. Names were mentioned, dates, specific incidents. 2 executives abruptly excused themselves from the room. When the recording ended, the silence was absolute. The legal representative was writing furiously. The COO's hands were trembling slightly. "Those 2 executives he mentioned," the HR director finally said, "they've been with the company 15 years. And facilitated harassment for much of that time, apparently," the COO replied coldly. Their employment ended the moment they left this room. She turned to me. Ms. Alexandra, words cannot express our horror at what you've endured, nor our gratitude for bringing this to light. Had you simply left like the others, this predatory behavior would have continued unchecked. That's why I didn't leave, I said simply. His pattern works because isolation makes victims feel powerless. I refuse to be powerless. The meeting continued for hours. Every aspect of the company's reporting structures, hiring practices, and management training was scrutinized. By afternoon, immediate action plans were being implemented. New harassment reporting protocols, anonymous ethics channels, mandatory training, and external audits of department cultures. 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of police interviews, legal proceedings, and company restructuring. Grant remained in custody, denied bail due to evidence suggesting he might contact potential witnesses. The 2 executives implicated in his recordings were under investigation. Former victims came forward, strengthening the case against him. At work, the atmosphere transformed. Warren stepped down as department head, acknowledging his failure to protect team members. The design team was reorganized under interim leadership, while a search began for a permanent director. Then came the email requesting my presence in the COO's office. Walking in, I found her alongside the CEO and chief legal counsel. "Please sit, Lexi," the CEO said, using my preferred name for the first time. "We've been discussing your future with the company." My stomach tightened. Despite everything, part of me still feared repercussions. "Your handling of this situation demonstrated exceptional courage and professionalism," he continued. "But we recognize that continuing here might carry difficult associations. Are you suggesting I leave?" I asked directly. "Quite the opposite," the COO interjected. "We're creating a new position, Director of Workplace Culture and Safety. It would involve overseeing implementation of our new protocols, training programs, and serving as liaison between employees and management on cultural concerns." The CEO nodded. "We believe someone who's experienced these issues firsthand would bring valuable perspective. The position reports directly to the executive committee with appropriate compensation and authority." I blinked, processing their words. "You're offering me a directorship?" "We're offering you the opportunity to transform this company from within," the legal counsel clarified, "to ensure what happened to you and those before you never happens again." 2 months later, I stood before the company's assembled staff, presenting the new workplace safety initiatives. My designer's eye had crafted visual materials that communicated with clarity and impact. My personal experience informed every policy and procedure. As I outlined the anonymous reporting system, mandatory management training, and zero-tolerance policies, I felt something I hadn't since joining Brookfield Pride. The changes weren't limited to our company. When news of Grant's arrest became public, other firms in our industry began reviewing their practices. 3 of his previous employers contacted me for consultation on implementing similar protections. Then came the day of Grant's sentencing hearing. I sat in the courtroom alongside 5 other women who'd come forward, former colleagues from various companies, all bearing similar stories. When Grant entered in handcuffs, he looked diminished, his confident posture replaced with slumped shoulders. The judge reviewed the case details grimly. The evidence demonstrates a calculated pattern of workplace terrorism spanning nearly a decade. The defendant used his professional position to systematically harass, stalk, and psychologically torture women he perceived as threats to his status. Grant's attorney offered weak mitigations: stress, competitive pressure, misunderstandings. Then the judge delivered the sentence: 7 years imprisonment for multiple stalking, harassment, illegal surveillance, and theft charges. Additionally, a lifetime ban from working in corporate environments with direct reports, and restraining orders protecting all identified victims. As he was led away, Grant looked back once, his eyes meeting mine. I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I simply watched as he disappeared through the courtroom door, his power permanently broken. Outside the courthouse, the other women gathered around me. "When I left my job, I thought I was alone," one said quietly, "that I'd failed somehow." "He counted on our silence," another added, "on shame, keeping us isolated. That ends today." I replied, "Not just for us, but for everyone who comes after us." My revenge wasn't just watching Grant's arrest or seeing his prison sentence handed down. It wasn't the promotion or the policy changes. My true revenge was transforming my personal nightmare into protection for countless others. 2 years later, The workplace culture initiative I developed had been adopted by 37 companies across the country. Grant remained in prison, his appeals denied. I'd been promoted to the executive committee, the youngest member in company history. My designs were winning industry recognition, no longer undermined by sabotage. But my greatest satisfaction came from mentoring young women entering the field, creating the supportive environment I'd been denied. Each time a new employee commented on the company's exceptional culture, each time someone used the reporting system successfully, each time a potential problem was addressed before becoming harassment, I counted these as victories. My grandmother's bracelet, recovered from Grant's apartment, now rests on my wrist as I lead meetings in the same conference room where he once belittled me. The company where he sought to destroy me now bears the imprint of my vision, not just in building designs, but in its very foundation. Some might call this success the best revenge. I call it justice, not just for me, but for everyone who deserves to be valued for their talent, rather than targeted for it. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to support more content that shines light on workplace issues many face in silence. Your comments help others know they're not alone. Have you witnessed or experienced workplace harassment? Sharing our stories is the first step toward changing toxic cultures everywhere.